What is up, everybody? Another Monday, which means yet another major in the books. And with that, we are officially done with double elimination format. Moment of silence. What is up, everybody? Lawler here, your inside source for all things Rocket League. Jokes aside, the North American Winter Major wraps up the Major and the Winter Split for this season and are going to be transitioning into the Spring Split here after a trade window. But before we get into that, obviously we have to recap what went down this past week in North America. $100,000 on the line, a bunch of teams battling it out, and a lot of really interesting matches. You got a little bit of things confirmed when it comes to flukes or possible roster changes coming in the future. But overall, just a really exciting weekend of Rocket League. It's just, I personally think it's too much. I'm at the point where I can't find myself enjoying series, no matter how good the bracket reset is or whatever it is. I just can't bring myself to watch that many matches when you also schedule a freestyle competition in the middle of it, which I'll get and talk to later. I think it's great brand integration, but again, it makes for a really long day. So as always, in this recap, we're going to be talking about the winners round and going through all the way to the winners finals. We'll then jump down to the lower rounds, kind of talk briefly about the earlier matches, and then get into the juicy stuff, the winner semis, finals, and grand finals. So some exciting stuff overall. Let's take a look at winners round one right away. You've got version 1 versus Kansas City Pioneers, G2 versus Ghost, PK versus Sonics, and Peeps versus Alpine. First up, V1 versus KCP. V1 has won the last 4 times against KCP. They seem to have their number just like the Peeps have theirs. This time no different. 3-1. Start off a little bit shaky from both sides. But version 1 does close it out relatively early. These matches were quite early in the morning if you're on the West Coast. And the other weird thing about these is none of these were on the main broadcast. They had 3 streams going on because you're trying to do a double elimination tournament, which is 25 matches, not including the bracket reset. So a lot of games to be played. So 3 broadcasts. They do the earlier matches, the less important matches on there. Still some difficulties with the format because even though the teams get a first round bye, so if I'm Energy, Space Station, Envy, or Rogue, I drop down to the lower bracket and I'm in the exact same spot as the team that got up a warm-up match in comparison. So obviously that's not supposed to happen. You're the higher seed. You should win that match against the other like 5 through 8 seeds. But again, it just feels kind of stupid. And at the same time, I'm just personally so very happy that double elimination is gone. These feel so drawn out and there's so many matches. I do think there's a better way to do a format, especially over the course of 2 days. So 3 broadcasts or 3 streams, because there's so many matches they have to get through in the course of 2 days. Version 1, again, like I mentioned, wins right away. The big upset that came from early in that morning when I woke up is finding out that Ghost Gaming 3-2'd G2. And this started the conversation of, do they make a roster change? What happens? All the G2 fans lose their mind because they seem like something has to change if their team isn't the best of the best of the best all the time. So a lot of conversations, a lot of really interesting ones, people calling for people's throats, and it's kind of annoying. I would have to say if I'm G2. Like G2 is just trying to do their best and try to do their thing, but because they have such a large fandom, everybody, anytime they even begin to falter, just way overboard with. You think it's Sonics versus Pittsburgh Knights. This was a pretty big surprise for me as well, because I do think PK is a pretty solid team, and Sonics is playing with their coach. I think Roldiz is a talented player. I talked about this a couple of videos ago, I think last Friday, about how this is a team that, even though they're playing with Roldiz, I do think Roldiz is a player that retired a little bit too early when he was with United. Still a really good player, but glad to see they're finding success even with playing with their coach. Then you got Peeps versus Alpine. Peeps looking, again, like a team that needs to be picked up. 3-0 over Alpine. They move on into the winners quarterfinals. In the winners quarterfinals, you get version 1 versus Energy. This game, if you're a V1 fan, was pretty heartbreaking. There was numerous times in both game 2 and in game 4 for the V1 squad to close it out. Missed opportunities. Again, way too overzealous on their offense. It's a big counterattack by Energy. They get punished. On Energy's half, they looked flat. Energy definitely looked like they were dealing with those consistency issues I'm talking about. And I'm not saying like Energy's results where they place in the tournament have been inconsistent. I mean, on a match-to-match basis, sometimes they show up and they're one of the best teams in the world. And then other times they show up and they're super flat. And we kind of got a taste of that in this game where V1 comes out ready to play. Performance is there. That warm-up match possibly part of the reason why. And then, quite honestly, version 1 missed their opportunity to 3-0 clean sweep Energy and move in to the winter semifinals. Energy does wake up eventually and does close it out in the end. Close series as always. Again, V1 going to game 5, having issues closing out their close matches against the top seeds. That has been their nail in the coffin. Unfortunately for them, they can't find a way to close out against kind of the top 4, top 5 rosters. Then get Space Station versus Ghost Gaming, and you get a little bit more confirmation out of Space Station, showing they have a very good squad. I will say it wasn't the cleanest of gameplay. A lot of people, after seeing Ghost beat G2, were like, yeah, it's going to happen. But despite rotations and everything else looking clean, there were some hints and indications in this of like something's going on with Space Station. This feels kind of awkward. We then got Envy versus Sonics, and Sonics puts up yet another good fight, but eventually Envy does close it out 3-2. And then you got Rogue versus Peeps, and Peeps just wallops them. Peeps continues to be a team that when AJ has space, or when in this circumstance, both AJ and Gyro really stepping up on offense, and Illusion and AJ stepping up huge on defense, basically stopping everything. It was good to see that the Peeps continue their form and break into the winter semifinals, while the Rogue drops down early in the bracket. And because G2 losing earlier, you've got G2 and Rogue fighting for 8th to 12th place out immediately. Only one team can move on. We then jump into the winner semifinals. We got Energy versus Space Station, and this is where you really saw the glaring issues. Space Station just could not keep up with Energy. Energy working the field significantly better, a lot more pressure, good follow-up. They close it out pretty early, 4-1 over Space Station. And then on the other side, you've got Envy versus the Peeps. It was really interesting to see so many sweeps actually happen in this tournament, but you're going to be surprised by who. Envy does 4-0 the Peeps. The way I can explain it is, to me, Envy is a team that does not fall for the tricks of the Peeps. The Peeps are a team that, in my regards, are very similar to Space Station, where their way that they work the field, their aggression, how fast they are to challenging the ball is very similar to Space Station. But while Space Station is very refined and with purpose, you see the Peeps that are like almost acting purely on instinct, and they're very tough to read for that reason. I don't think Envy is a team that falls for that kind of play style where you are tricked into playing super fast and super aggressive and putting yourself out of position. Envy plays their game. They're very grounded. They keep to themselves. They're not going to challenge you, try to beat you to the ball. They're just going to go to the position where you're putting the ball after. And you saw how heavily that playstyle was exploited in this series. Envy does end up beating out the Peeps. I will say it is a lot closer than a 4-0 states, but you could tell majority of the control of the game was in favor of Envy. We then get into the winners finals of Energy versus Envy, and Energy with the hot hand. This is the first match of day 2 for Envy and Energy. But Energy looks like they were the better team throughout the tournament. You kind of had that notion of Energy looking like the better team early on. Even though it started off in favor of Envy, very quickly it flipped the script, and you get 3 in a row from Energy. Squishy, I think, had a very, very good weekend. He showed it against version 1 earlier on in day 1, and that continued, where his defense has bailed them out of a lot of situations. And then while that started to happen, you started to see the development of Garrett as well, where it's not just the Squishy show making all these miraculous saves to keep what should be goals from going in. You then get Garrett supporting that in the back midfield, and they push it up, and Justin continues to hit the shots he does. So Energy still one of the prettier teams to watch when it comes to their pass plays and how they develop. But again, while teams like Rogue and Envy focus a lot on slow, methodical play and taking possession and moving it downfield, Energy does that with a quick pass from one side of the field to the complete opposite side of the field, downfield. And it's a quick 1-2. It's an immediate counterattack in the back of your net. And they just transition so fast. A lot of emphasis on finding each other in space. Their communication with Garrett still one of the best in North America for that reason. And they really exploited that slower play from Envy by just removing the field way too fast for Envy before they could kind of get settled in and utilize that superior positioning. That then guarantees Energy in the top 2. We then go down to the lower bracket, where Envy is going to be waiting in the losers finals for whoever gets there. Starting off with the losers round 1, you've got KCP versus Sonics, G2 versus Rogue, Pittsburgh Knights versus V1, and Alpine versus Ghost. First up, KCP versus Sonics. The chaotic, really difficult to read playstyle of KCP prevails here. Beast Mode obviously having a pretty good performance as well, but I think Sonics does a lot better against more structured teams that they can assume on how the playstyle is going to go. But in this circumstance, KCP is very chaotic and all over the place. They thrive in chaos, which is how I've stated it before. KCP ends up 3-0ing Sonics, surprisingly enough. But the games are a lot closer. All 1-goal games except for the third and final game, which is 6-2 blowout. So you could tell KCP was starting to get more and more welcomed into the scenario. We then jump down to the next one, which is Rogue versus G2. Game 5 nail biter, back and forth. And this is what kind of frustrates me. You're going to see a lot of talk about Rogue coming up here, and everybody calling for, the fact that, hey, G2 getting last place and they tied for 9 to 12th, and they need to make a roster change, and this player has to get kicked, and their coach needs to go, and all these types of things. And it's like, you just went up against Rogue, a really hot looking Rogue, and your losses come from a decently looking Ghost Gaming with no warm up, which again, I don't think is an excuse. I think them losing to Ghost is a little bit more indicative than them losing to Rogue, a Rogue that goes all the way to the ends of the earth to find wins with First Killer. So again, it's a game 5. It's got overtimes. It's a really close series. And the only thing you see out of it is just everybody lashing out at G2. And I really don't understand why. And it's really unfortunate. But the big thing to take away from this is G2 knocked out immediately. They have not had a good winter split. I don't know if the double elimination format just does not suit them or what it may be. I still stand by my opinion that they are more of a LAN team, where if you put this team and their playstyle on LAN, it is going to be more indicative to success than what you are seeing here online. But after this kind of result, there's a couple factors that you really need to think about with G2. Number one, bad winter split. You're still top 6. You did just get passed up by the peeps overall in the rankings. Do you make a roster change? Do you switch things up to hope for something different when it comes to the last split? This is your last chance to make it into the World Championship. Yes, you right now have enough points, but based upon the way you're trending, things aren't going so well. So do you make a roster change? Number 2, if you do, who the heck do you replace? What do you do? What's the result? Because you have built a playstyle for how long, and you've been together for how many years, and now that's all going to change. And are you willing to do that with only 2 weeks of practice and scrim potential before going into another 3-month-long stint of a different format and a different situation? Or do you want to stay with what's comfortable because you know it's worked pretty well up to this point? The other option here as well is based upon it. Do they just change their playstyle? Does Jazzo have something where they're like, you know what? Our current way we approach the game is not working. We need to change it up. That in itself definitely feels pretty complicated with the team, and sometimes it is better to just replace somebody. There is some people wondering about what potential players could end up taking spots or see roster changes if they do happen. A lot of those are rumors, and there's some that I know that are possibly in the works. I have to keep that stuff pretty hush for now, but yeah, G2's got a lot of things they want to think about. They obviously just signed a pretty long contract extension as well. So again, buyouts and cause and effect and everything else going on. It will be interesting to see what path G2 takes. We'll be keeping a very close eye on this roster throughout the trade window and everything else. We then jump down to PK versus Version 1. Not a whole lot to talk about. Version 1 just the better team. They outperform PK in pretty much every aspect of this game. 3-0 clean sweep. And then Alpine versus Ghost. I think Alpine, most cases, is the better roster. Ghost had a pretty good match against G2. But against Alpine here, Alpine just controlled the field better. A lot more aggression. Really, really aggressive, as always with Alpine. They end up beating out Ghost Gaming. Losers round 2, you've got KCP versus Rogue, and then Version 1 versus Alpine. Version 1 looks like they're almost going to throw this one. This is a game 5 nail-biter, OT, down to the wire. Eventually, it is a pass play that gets created where it ends up going off the sidewall, which then bounces back into the middle, which allows Gimmick to hit a second touch off the backboard, and then he puts it in on target in front of 3. So a really close series. Again, Alpine and Version 1 to me are both in similar regards. Players and teams that show that they can be top potential. They have shown that they can compete against some of the best, and have taken wins off of them in the past. It's just a matter of making sure they close out the series. That's kind of been the concern for both rosters, but Version 1 does it better this time. They move on into day 2 for the first time ever. Version 1 has not made it into the fall major. They make it into the winter major based upon the grid results, not through their qualifications through regionals. And then they also end up going to day 2, which is a really big deal for them. Not only for points, but just to show progression with Calm. So big confidence booster here for Version 1. On the other side, you've got Rogue versus Kansas City Pioneers. And this one was actually pretty close. After Rogue beats G2, I thought they didn't have any gas left in the tank. They looked pretty exhausted after that series and put up a ton of goals. I think they were averaging like 3+ goals a game throughout the entire tournament, which is insane to think about. I think they put up like 36 before the grand finals, which is pretty nutty. But the big thing with Rogue against Kansas City Pioneers is I think Kansas City Pioneers, because of their playstyle, does adapt very well to Rogue's kind of in-your-face constant aggression. I think they're kind of built for it. So it does go back and forth. Rogue ends up winning the first 2. They almost get reverse swept. Overtime in game 3, which KCP wins. Game 4, it's 2-1. KCP wins that one as well. And then it goes to game 5. 6 minutes, 6-second overtime. It's like tied for like 18th or 16th or something like that. Longest OT in RLCS. But Rogue does close it out, and thank goodness they do because of what happens next. So now we get into the losers quarterfinals. This is technically the official start of day 2. They have losers quarterfinals, then they go to the winners finals, and then drop back down. So losers quarterfinals starts off with Rogue versus Space Station. And despite boot camping, despite being in Team House, I have no idea where Space Station was. Rogue 4-0 clean sweep, and then they do that back to back. They 4-0 clean sweep at the loser quarterfinals. They 4-0 clean sweep the losers semifinals. They 4-0 clean sweep the losers finals. So you're talking the quarterfinals, semifinals, and losers finals. Rogue is now 12-0. That kind of spoils things. The peeps do wipe the floor with V1. They just have V1's number. They just can't get a hold of how to play. They fall and they succumb to that awkward, chaotic play our style. And V1 definitely needs to go back and look at what Envy does against the peeps and really take from that experience, because they have the capability. I will say Calm was double committing a lot. Ball chasey even, which is weird because usually he's the one that's super calm, collected, slows it down, mechanical. But man, he got overwhelmed in that series. It almost felt as if they were just happy to be top 6, but it was not a good showing for V1. So back to the focus. If you want to showcase Wojtek, probably quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals in the losers bracket. Rogue just wipes the floor with all 3 of these. A lot of momentum, look like the best team. First killer making an argument for best player in North America, let alone the world. Guy just hits whatever angle he wants, is always there for the follow-up, creates a lot of opportunities. And I think this is a time now that Rogue fans can be happy. This is a team that has a lot of potential. I wanted to see it happen again. I said it in my predictions. I said it in everything else. I like Rogue. I like what they're doing. They've had a fantastic winter split. High pressure situation. You just won a regional. Can you show me you are capable of putting up that level of performance again? And the answer is yes. Credit to Corrupted G and what he's built with this team. Credit to Rogue and everything else that they've put together and the frustrations their fan base goes through. But this is a Rogue team that you can be proud of, officially. You don't have to deal with being burnt out. You don't have to deal with getting your hopes up just to be falling short. They will put up a fight against any roster, and that is a very fantastic feeling, especially with a very young roster that is only going to get better with experience. So good to see that in his second season of RLCS, First Killer has really found his form. He's got teammates that are willing to support, enable him. He's also recognizing that he doesn't have to be selfish with everything. He can create opportunities for his teammates. And Turinturo finally getting to showcase why Charlotte Phoenix was so happy about his pickup. So the grand final isn't over yet. If you guys can hear this.
Taroko, what a shot here. I mean, he had this.
It is still going on my other monitor. And this is why. After the losers finals concludes, Rogue 4-0's Envy, they take the freestyle competition presented by Ford, where one freestyler is going to win a Ford F-150, like a $50,000 car or truck. And they decide to put that in between the losers final and the grand final. So you already have a 4 or 5 hour broadcast day. Rogue's got a bunch of momentum. Losers final, they're feeling good. You've got essentially Energy, who's been waiting for like 2 hours. And then you add in another 1 hour part of the broadcast where both teams just have to sit there and get iced. And they don't get to do anything about it. And that part really sucks because it is now 7 p.m. my time. The broadcast started at 12 my time. And we are now roughly 7 hours into a broadcast. And it is still only 1-1 in the bracket reset. So I've got stuff to do. I can't stay up all night waiting for this series to end. This is part of the reason why I still hate double elimination. Rogue did win the first series. It is 4-3. It goes to game 7. It's super clinical. Rogue wins 3 in a row in games 3, 4, and 5. Game 6 was Energy, and then game 7 was Rogue 2-1. Super close. There was a big mistake, a double commit that 2 players on Energy went for boost. They got punished for it. But we're now waiting for the grand final. So with that said, that is going to wrap up this video. I do not know how this one ends. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it with you guys on stream tomorrow. Tomorrow is Monday, Metal Monday on twitch.tv/Lawler. Come hang out with us. We'll be listening to Metal. I'm also going to sit down and watch the final bracket match. I'm going to watch this one in fruition. But in the meantime, I'm going to go play some Call of Duty with Calm from version 1 because why not? Sounds like fun. But yeah, a lot of matches, a lot of games. I am so happy for double elimination to be over here in just a bit. But my recommendation is this grand final has actually been pretty good. I just can't bring myself to get into it because I've already been watching Rocket League for 7 hours today and my brain is mush. So with that said, I do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the recap And if you've made it this far, always greatly appreciated. If you enjoy the content and you haven't yet to do so, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so you guys know when these videos come out. Give it a thumbs up, and any interaction with comments and stuff is also greatly appreciated. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.